אהבתם את יצירת המופת? הירשמו לעוד.
Think about your favorite modern blockbusters for a second. You know the ones. The thrilling superhero movies where a diverse cast of heroes joins forces. Or maybe those high-stakes heist films where a crew of very specific specialists is gathered together for one impossible job. Well, have you ever stopped to wonder where that foundational blueprint actually came from? Like, who first wrote the rulebook for assembling the ultimate team on screen? Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're taking a close look at a film that is almost universally recognized as one of the greatest, most influential movies in cinema history. We're talking about the sweeping 1954 Japanese historical epic, Seven Samurai. Directed by the legendary Akira Kurosawa, who actually co-wrote the screenplay with Shinobu Hashimoto and Hideo Oguni, this film is, well, it's nothing short of an absolute masterpiece. As we'll see, it's pretty amazing to discover just how deeply this single movie changed storytelling, cinematography, and action forever. Section 1. The Ultimate Cinematic Blueprint, the birth of the team-up epic. So, long before cinematic universes were a thing, Kurosawa was literally laying the groundwork for the modern team-up epic. But getting this vision onto the screen? Not an easy task at all. Look at this timeline. Released in 1954, it became the most expensive Japanese film ever made. The production was absolutely grueling. It took a full year to shoot, and they repeatedly ran out of money. I mean, they had to stop production multiple times. But that massive gamble paid off, establishing a legendary legacy that global cinema still relies on today. Okay, let's dive into this, because this brilliantly illustrates why that legacy is so enduring. The film basically pioneered this precise four-step narrative structure. First, you identify a massive threat. Second, you assemble a diverse team of specialists for a singular mission. Third, train the defenseless. And fourth, prepare for the inevitable clash. It sounds super familiar, right? This is the exact blueprint for countless films. It directly inspired everything from westerns like The Magnificent Seven straight through to today's massive superhero team-ups. It all stems from this exact sequence. Moving to Section 2, A Desperate Village's Plea, 16th Century Survival. To really understand how this story builds, we have to transport ourselves back to late 16th century Japan. This was a period of relentless, devastating civil war. We're following a poor, defenseless farming village that is just repeatedly pillaged by bandits. They desperately need to hire samurai for protection, but there's a huge catch. They have absolutely zero money. The only payment they can possibly offer for warriors to risk their lives is just 3 meals of rice a day. That's it. Which brings us to the overwhelming threat they're facing. 40. That is the number of heavily armed, utterly ruthless bandits circling this village. And the villagers know for a fact that these 40 bandits are planning to attack right after the autumn harvest. So the clock is ticking, and the odds are just incredibly stacked against these starving farmers. Now, in stark contrast to those 40 bandits, we have the number 7. The villagers eventually cross paths with Kanbei, who is this weary but incredibly noble veteran Ronin, a masterless samurai, and he takes pity on their desperate plight. Kanbei manages to recruit just 5 other samurai, each bringing their own distinct skills and personalities to the table, plus one wildly unpredictable rogue. Together, these meager 7 warriors are tasked with fortifying the village and training the terrified farmers for the brutal fight ahead. Section 3. The Tragedy of Class Divide, Aristocrats and Peasants. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that this story isn't just about swinging swords. It's deeply steeped in the rigid, hypocritical class barriers of the era. Notice the stark contrast we're highlighting here. On one side, society holds up the aristocratic noble samurai, and on the other, the lowly farmers. But Kurosawa doesn't paint this in simple black and white. He reveals the deceitful, hoarding nature of the terrified farmers just as clearly as the supposed nobility of the warriors. There is a deep, deep divide and mistrust between the people meant to protect and the people needing protection. It actually turns out the most fascinating character in the whole film is Kikuchiyo, played brilliantly by Toshiro Mifune. Kikuchiyo is an erratic, hot-tempered rogue who falsely claims to be of samurai birth, but in reality, he was born a farmer. Because of this, he desperately wants to be a samurai, but he uniquely understands both worlds. He serves as this crucial, tragic bridge between the aristocratic warriors and the lowly peasants. Kikuchiyo really becomes the moral epicenter of the entire film. In what is easily one of cinema's most iconic monologues, he furiously indicts the samurai class. He completely strips away their nobility, screaming that the profound suffering inflicted by the warrior class is exactly what turned the farmers into deceitful beasts. It's a powerful, entirely neutral critique by Kurosawa that simply illustrates the immense damage done by this rigid social hierarchy. Section 4. Revolutionizing action on film: mud, blood, and lenses. Beyond this story itself, it's wild to discover how Kurosawa permanently changed the technical landscape of action cinema. Before this film, action was often shot in very static theatrical ways, but Kurosawa threw that right out the window. He pioneered multi-camera setups to capture chaotic battles from multiple angles simultaneously. He used telephoto lenses to compress the space, throwing the audience directly into the messy frenzy of swinging swords and charging horses. The action here isn't clean at all. It is visceral, deeply exhausting, and completely unromantic. Adding to that visceral feel is Kurosawa's masterful use of the elements as a narrative device. Throughout the film, he uses weather to amplify emotion. You can practically feel the intense heat, the blinding dust, and the howling wind, and it all culminates in a legendary final battle fought in a torrential downpour. The driving rain and thick, leveling mud are visually striking for sure, but they also symbolize something deeper. They represent the chaotic nature of death. In that mud, samurai and bandit alike are reduced to the exact same struggling level in the dirt. And finally, Section 5, the melancholy of victory, surviving the New World. As the dust, or rather the mud, settles, the film slows down and shifts its tone completely into a profound tragedy. The crucial point here is what happens after the battle is actually won. The village is saved, and the farmers joyously replant their fields. But for the samurai, it is incredibly bittersweet. Several are dead, buried under mounds of earth, and the surviving warriors just look on, entirely forgotten by the very people they bled and died for. Which brings us to the haunting final moments of the film. Kanbei, that weary ronin who started it all, looks at the joyous village and reflects on their supposed triumph. He says, "In the end, we've lost this battle too. The victory belongs to those peasants, not to us." It's a sobering realization that the samurai are simply relics of a violent age, destined to fight and die for a world that literally no longer has a place for them. It leaves us with such a lingering, powerful thought. The samurai fulfilled their mission perfectly, yet their reward is just obsolescence. So if your ultimate victory means creating a world that completely leaves you behind, was the battle truly won? It's a fascinating question about purpose and sacrifice, and exactly why Seven Samurai remains an absolute masterclass to this day. Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to go dive into this incredible piece of cinematic history for yourself.